Hello, thank you for joining us today for this presentation. We are your team of expert consultants here to tackle the 10 pressing issues faced by the Anytown Library in Anytown, USA, as outlined by the Megabucks Report. Next slide. A quick overview of the issues at hand. We have wayfinding, security, organization of the collection, lighting, access, food and drink, digitization, language collections, OPAC, and the issue with the teen room. I will now pass things off to Shannon, who will address the issue of wayfinding.
Thank you, Kat. Wayfinding is a very important aspect of engaging customers in a positive way. You can't really benefit from the library if you can't find anything in it. And the problem right now is people can't find anything in it and they're just leaving. So the focus will be to ensure that we meet and cater towards the needs of the customers, making the environment designed for them. Customers within 10 seconds or 10 steps of entering the library should have an idea of where things are located. We're aiming to satisfy the 4 C's: choice, comfort, convenience, and customer service. We want to have a customer service centric environment rather than a staff centric environment. Using 3 levels of signage to create an environment that is accessible for all and creates a great experience for all is going to be the goal. Browsing should be not just easy and fun, but encouraged. We should be allowing users to take their time and enjoy the experience of being in the library. It should be easy to find materials of interest, and we need to make it easy to navigate the library without having to ask for directions on where things are. Power walls and topic-specific signage, such as seen here from the Singapore Institute of Management Library, are great for directing customers around and focusing them. The University of Canberra's library uses color schemes for specific areas, arranging by genre signage that directs customers within the stack towards specific authors can also promote more materials and being checked out. Specific colors assigned to specific areas, so all the customer has to do is follow that color to get to that area or that genre. Power walls are unmistakable when it comes to knowing what the customer is looking for. You can use their language and direct the customers around the library. Again, the Singapore Institute of Management Library utilized these power walls to help guide customers. They're also great merchandising tools, advertising and advocating for services that are offered within the library and making it easier for customers to see where they are and where they want to go or what they want to be involved in. Based on several quotes from various vendors, including Avalis and RMS Design, we expect the cost of a complete wayfinding signage overhaul not to exceed $15,000. The implementation will work wonders for customer service as well as material usage overall. Our next topic is security and will be presented by Rachel.
Thanks, Shannon. So if you could go on to the next screen. So Shannon's discussion about wayfinding leads directly into the issue of security. Mr. Megabucks, you pinpointed security as an issue before you even entered the library, with you not even being sure that the library was open. There are multiple improvements that should be made both inside and outside of this library. Next screen. So the new and improved security system for this library would consist of outdoor security cameras, ample outdoor lighting, and an RFID system. Having visible cameras would make it feel more secure. It wouldn't be anything overbearing or unwelcoming, but it would catch any incidents. The presence of cameras might even dissuade people from taking books. And outdoor lighting would not only make cameras work better, but make patrons feel safer. Next slide, please. Currently, all materials have electromagnetic strips, and when they are not checked out as they pass the sensor, the book detection device gives off an alarm. An RFID system would help keep track of books, as library staff would know where books are. Staff would be able to see in cameras who took them and know what is missing from the library and what is simply out of place in the building. The inventory process would also be faster, as they would have better information from just walking through the stacks and seeing what's there. Inventory right now is delayed, and they can randomly have books missing when staff or patrons go looking for them. The estimated cost for these security improvements, including lighting, cameras, tags, replacement security gates, staff workstations, and self-checkout machines, is $400,000. The majority of this cost is the RFID system, which is about $10,000 per security gate, $2,000 to $5,000 per self-service check-in and check-out, and $5,000 to $10,000 for each portable RFID reader. The cost of tags can be anywhere from 20 to 65 cents for each individual item, depending on whether it is a book or media. But the benefits to circulation far outweigh the cost. This new system would allow library staff to keep better track of the materials, as they would know what's lost and even when it went missing. It would also improve patrons' experiences and get them coming back, further impacting library circulation rates. Next, we can go on to organization of collection with Jessica.
Thank you, Rachel. The next problem we'd like to try to resolve is that of the organization of the collection. As you, Mr. Megabucks, have pointed out, the collection organized as is isn't conducive to browsing. There are no shelves, everything's crowded on the shelf. Sorry, there are no displays, everything's crowded on the shelf. Everything is just spying out with call numbers showing. Next slide, please. If there are no displays, if there aren't any ways for patrons to see books without pulling them from the shelves, any town library's collection isn't going to look interesting to patrons. What we've come up with as a solution to this involves a heavy emphasis on visual merchandising. We'd like for any town to form a temporary display committee made up of current employees, namely the library director, the manager, and the collection manager, that would meet weekly for 6 months. Other employees could also join the committee if they wanted to. The display committee would decide how to display their books. They decide where displays are located, which displays to buy, how books can be displayed in currently existing space, and how books will be displayed once displays are bought. Next slide, please. So what will the display committee be learning in their merchandising training? Some of the main topics that would be covered in merchandising training could be the ways books should be displayed, face out with minimal props or embellishments, really without anything that could distract from the books. They could also learn how to creatively use furniture that's already around the library to keep costs down, how to display books, such as by grouping them together by theme, having seasonal displays, having displays that follow trends, staff recommendations, these kinds of displays. And of course, they'd learn where to place displays. One of the ways the committee could begin the process of deciding where to put books is by undertaking a project. They watch for where patrons are walking, where they go in the library, to make sure that displays are placed in areas where patrons actually go. And this project actually overlaps with the wayfinding project and the security system that Shannon and Rachel had talked about. And the best part about this solution is that even library staff that don't take part in this committee would be learning these things simply by working with the committee. The display committee is where we like to focus our resources, but merchandising would become an integral part of the library's collection organization, meaning that employees would keep up with and take part in maintaining these displays long after the committee has been dissolved. Next slide, please. Now, how does this benefit the library? Why is it so important that any town displays their collection instead of leaving it as is? Well, one study from 2014 showed that 94% of people prefer to shop in stores where visual merchandising is present. Now that online shopping is so prevalent, customers like to be rewarded for leaving their homes. This means making physical spaces more visually appealing. This would also improve perception of the books that the library already has. The Anything libraries in Colorado put the merchandising philosophy to practice in 2009 and saw that circulation increased overall by 91% from 2008 to 2012. Of course, this wasn't entirely due to merchandising, but their new focus on merchandising certainly didn't hurt. For this project, we're requesting an amount not to exceed $30,000. This will cover the cost of merchandising training and the displays that need to be bought. The only ongoing costs would be those of replacement displays, but hopefully those won't be needed for quite a while. Next slide, please. The next problem I'd like to talk about is the library's lighting system. Next slide, please. So it seems like the library currently has very poor lighting. A woman you were talking to pointed out that the lighting is so poor that she can't read the titles, let alone the books. This is obviously a problem because if patrons can't read titles, they can't find books that are interesting to them. And as with this woman, it could drive them away from the library. Now, the library is a hub for information in all formats, but books are still what people think of when they think of the library. Next slide, please. The solution we've come up with is a new lighting system with an emphasis on natural lighting. We'd like for the library to build a new sunroom where patrons can go to read and study, along with skylights throughout the library in areas where books are present so they can better read titles and find books. The reason we're proposing an emphasis on natural light is because it has more health benefits for people than artificial lighting does. This includes reducing eye strain, stress levels, and blood pressure, stimulating productivity, and increasing vitamin intake. Natural light is more comforting than artificial light, and we'd like to create a comfortable environment for the patrons of any town library. Adding natural light could also save costs over time because the library can save energy during the daytime when the sun is out. Some of the more extravagant examples of libraries emphasizing natural light can be seen here at the Mansueto Library Grand Reading Room in Chicago and at the Utopia Library in Belgium. Next slide, please. We showed a pretty big sunroom in the last slide, but what we'd like to build is something smaller, more like what's pictured here at the Upper Saddle River Library in New Jersey. What they've done is build a sunroom covering over a back balcony area with lights overhead for when it gets darker. The Anytown Library could build something similar with a covering over any area, upstairs or downstairs. This room would need overhead lights and seating areas. In the case of overhead lights, we think the library should add LED lights because they offer high illumination with little maintenance. The library wouldn't store any books in the sunroom to prevent damage to the materials, but there would be plenty of seating and a few tables so patrons can come to this room to read, study, do whatever it is they'd like to do. For areas where materials are kept, we'll need another solution. Next slide, please. So we're suggesting a mixture of skylights and LED lights. The skylights don't have to be as extravagant as you may be thinking. The lobby area could have a smaller version of what's seen here at Richmond High School in Indiana, while the ones in other areas of the library can be about a third of the size of the ones seen in Plymouth Public Library in Plymouth, Massachusetts. Other than making sure patrons have better lighting, what's important about the installation of skylights throughout the library is also making sure that books and other materials aren't damaged by sunlight. Some types of glass, like Solera, help reduce glare because they more evenly distribute light and they protect against UV light, which can damage books. We're recommending the use of these kinds of glasses. While we're also recommending the use of LED lights, like the ones seen at the Library of Birmingham in England. For this reason, to save costs over time, because they're energy efficient and because they emit low levels of heat. Next slide, please. Other libraries that have improved natural lighting throughout their library have had great results. The Henrietta Public Library in Henrietta, New York, added skylights and found that circulation improved by 20% over the first month they were open in comparison to the same month the previous year. Including the sunroom, lights, and furniture for the sunroom, the skylights, and the LED lights for this project, we're requesting an amount not to exceed $100,000. Now I'd like to pass it along to Shannon with Access.
Thank you so much, Jessica. Access is very important for this library to be successful. Even though the hours have been cut back, patrons still should be able to access and customers should have access to what the library offers even during off hours. Factors that are most important in addressing this library access and making it possible for customers to use the collection on a timetable that works for them, not just the library staff. Solutions for this involve fully utilizing technology to improve the systems and include the customer continually throughout the process. Open Plus Access has seen great success in library systems such as the Pioneer Library System and the Scott County Library Systems. Here, the Pioneer Library System offers 24-hour access, enabling customers to visit the library on their schedule and utilize its materials in their own time. Virtual check-ins and self-service check-in and check-out services such as those mentioned by Rachel during security, as well as hold retrieval that is possible with RFID systems. With all of this technology, there's the limits on what a library is capable of are being turned on its head. Bibliotheca has a variety of products such as these seen being used by the Mohammed bin Rashid Library in Dubai. To check books in or out, the customer need only place it on the reader shelf and the RFID system does the rest. The ease of use with this technology, as well as the Open Plus access, allows libraries to offer materials during extended access hours. This is where customers only need to enter their code to access the library, as seen here on the Scott County Library system. This will also utilize the cameras that were mentioned by Rachel during security, as they are part of the Open Access Plus system. Of course, customer expectations should be set and addressed early on in the process. We can start by making it an opt-in model, and a staff group should also be implemented that focuses on the customer experience. This opens the lines of communication between staff and management about how the system is working, as well as with the customers and the staff itself to see what their comments are or for them to evaluate the system. In the end, the goal is to offer a versatile program that increases the customer accessibility and frees up staff to focus on other library tasks instead of just checking in and checking out. Again, the full installation of the RFID system, including the cameras that Rachel already mentioned in the security section, as well as the open access RFID machines, check-in and check-out readers, shelf readers. I expect it to not exceed an additional $100,000 on top of the amount that Rachel already discussed. Overall, this will pay the library system back 100-fold in the future as customers have access to the materials on their own time. Up next, it's going to be food and drink and will be discussed by Rachel.
Thank you, Shannon. If you could go on to the next slide now. So with the current food and drink policy, people either have to throw their food away, leave it, or break the rule of no food and drink in the library. And based on the evidence, a lot of people are breaking this rule and eating anyway. And with the Open Plus self-service hours Shannon discussed, this rule would be nearly impossible to enforce. Next slide, please. So our solution is to abolish the library's no food allowed policy. Not only that, but to create a designated eating area right inside the library's main entrance. This new eating area with tables, vending machines, and garbage and recycling bins not only shows that food is welcome in the library, but makes use of the large empty space at the library's entrance that you noted in your observations. The estimated cost for this new eating area is $15,000, which accounts for the cost of the new tables and garbage and recycling bins, as well as vending machine costs, which is the cost of the machine itself, but also installation, merchandising, warehousing, and insurance. And the machines would become self-sufficient for the continued costs to run them, and the library will eventually earn back their original cost. Next slide, please. The culture around libraries has changed over the years. They're not just quiet buildings to house books, but community centers. The purpose of library materials is that they are circulated and used. Libraries should not be solely focused on preservation when it impedes their main goal. People shouldn't feel like they have to leave to eat. It'll make it not as welcoming and dissuade them from using the library as intended and checking out materials. Library staff can't control people eating around the books once they've checked them out, and they obviously aren't really controlling them in the library right now to begin with, because people are eating. That being said, there won't be no guidelines around food. The library should change their policy to allow food everywhere except at the computers and special collections. Also, other patrons must be taken into account. If other patrons find someone's food to be disruptive, whether it's smelly or noisy, there is the expectation that the person with the food respects that. Everyone wants libraries to be used and materials to be circulated. The library will be showing patrons the respect for them allowing the food, and patrons in turn must respect the space, the library staff, and their fellow patrons. Now we can move on to Kat, who will be discussing our next topic.
Thanks, Rachel. So in the Megabucks report, the issue of digitization was as follows. I asked to see the library's local history images, but they said the section was closed for 2 weeks. When I asked if the images were online or otherwise accessible, the librarian said no and walked away. Next slide. We recommend to digitize the local history collection to be made more accessible through the Anytown Library's website. Digitization greatly improves access to collections, especially those that aren't always accessible to patrons in person. Next slide. One example of a similar project, but a little bit more infamous, is the digitization project of the Dead Sea Scrolls in partnership with Google Research and the Development Center in Israel, as well as the Israel Antiquities Authority. They launched the Leon Levy Dead Sea Scroll Digital Library to document the entire Dead Sea Scroll collection online. This project has allowed for users from all over the world to have access to high definition images of the text. So no matter where they are and what time zone, it has made history accessible. And on the right, you can see a photo of them using various light technologies in order to make these ancient texts readable for everybody. Next slide. So with digitization, there are two options. You can digitize in-house, or you can outsource to a vendor. There are advantages and disadvantages to both. Factors such as cost, staffing, equipment, facilities, and time all need to be considered when deciding between the two. Disadvantages in the case of the library in any town are that digitizing a small collection in-house is more expensive, and it requires special technology treatment and expertise. To successfully and optimally digitize a collection in-house, there needs to be special equipment, technology, and training of staff. Here are some examples of specialized technology used to digitize materials used by the North Carolina Digital Heritage Center. At the top is an example of a Phase 1 book scanner, which is designed for mass digitizing of books and a variety of other bound materials. In the bottom right is another type of scanner ideal for newspapers, and on the left is an image of a Hasselblad H6D 100C used to shoot large format materials such as maps. All this equipment requires expertise to use and has ongoing maintenance costs. We recommend that the Anytown Library outsources this project to a professional vendor in order for patrons to have 24/7 access to local history images via the Anytown website. Next slide. So there are many vendors to choose from. These are some of the larger, more well-known companies that digitize documents. They are known to do business with large companies and corporations like Coca-Cola, Intel, and the Dodgers baseball team. Next slide. However, for the library in Anytown, we recommend outsourcing this project to Creekside Digital. They have provided top quality digitization since 2006 and have worked with a plethora of clientele, including both large and small libraries, to complete scanning projects similar to the one needed by the library in Anytown for their local history collection. They are also the strategic scanning partners of Lyrasis, one of the nation's largest regional library membership organizations for info professionals. And here is a breakdown of the costs for this project. Assuming that the collection of local historical images is on the smaller side, if this project included 150 rolls of film, the cost of digitization would be roughly $8,000 with some added costs for shipping and other unknown factors that might pop up, which is less than the cost of one specialized machine previously mentioned. Next slide. And now to tackle the issue of language collection. The report showed they didn't have a Spanish or Chinese collection, even though there is a sizable Spanish-speaking and Chinese immigrant community well within walking distance to the library, which probably explains why most non-English speakers in the community stay away from the library. Next slide. Our solution is to purchase a new Spanish and Chinese collection, then share it with the Anytown community. Next slide. So how do you select materials for the local Spanish and Chinese speaking communities? The majority of libraries across the US use demographic data from censuses to as their primary source for determining which non-English languages to provide to their community. But then the issue is, how do you build a collection with just data, not knowing what people are really in need of and searching for? Next slide. Libraries such like the California Arcadia Public Library looked at what other libraries in similar community demographics are purchasing. However, the Hillsborough Public Library in Oregon recently partnered with a sister library in a town in Japan to assess each other's language collections and make improvements suggestions. We recommend that any town library partner with sister libraries in Spanish and Chinese speaking communities in order to build an optimal foreign language collection that includes materials that will serve the non-English speaking communities. So here is an example, or really just pictures from the sister library program between Hillsborough and the town in Japan. You can see there are Japanese students in America at a baseball game, as well as American students through the library program in Japan. Next slide. We recommend that the library in any town host a series of events and programs centering Spanish and Chinese cultures in order to promote the new collection and a more inclusive community. Here is an image taken from the Huntington Library in Los Angeles at their Lunar New Year celebration hosted at the Botanical Garden, where they had line dancers, painting, calligraphy, opera singers, and Kung Fu practitioners. Next slide. And here are some examples of flyers for programs and events centering Hispanic Heritage Month at libraries in Charlotte, North Carolina. On the left is a flyer for a bookmarking design program for younger children. And on the right is an advertisement for a month-long interactive exhibit. Partnering with sister libraries will also aid in authenticity of any planned events by the Anytown Library. Next slide. Altogether, the estimated total cost of funding and promoting a successful Spanish and Chinese language collection is around $100,000. That is $20,000 to the Spanish and $20,000 to the Chinese collections, building them from scratch with books, print materials, DVDs, ebooks, and online resources and anything else for the community. There is also $60,000 allocated to events and programming to promote the new collection. This estimation is built assuming that each item in the collection will cost around $30 and a medium-sized event will cost around $40,000. And now for Shannon with the OPAC issue.
Thank you so much, Kat. So the Online Public Access Catalog, or OPAC, is the virtual doorway to the collection for the Anytown Library. And the challenge right now is that it doesn't work. It's not customer friendly, it's hard to use and cumbersome. The key to allowing customers to utilize all the services and the materials for the libraries in the OPEC system, and we want to make sure that that customers can access what the library has to offer. So the best solution that we have decided is a graphic web designer will need to be brought in to overhaul the current online catalog so that the customer experience customers experience ease of use rather than frustration when using the catalog and trying to access materials. A graphic web, the user experience right now needs to be addressed in the design process, as seen in all these examples from various libraries, including the San Jose Public Library and the Cherry Hill Public Library. The top banner system choices, often with additional drop-down sub-choices, allow users to quickly pursue their choices and modify searches within the system. The addition of a non-English language options should also be included, as well as access to user support should users run into any issues or want to query reference librarians via the system. So with the help of an experienced website graphic designer who's familiar with cataloging and is familiar with deciding which MARC fields should be displayed in the OPEX system, a customer-focused system can be implemented. We feel that it can be implemented within 6 months of a contract date being set for no more than $30,000. Once it's implemented, the improved user experience will be worth its weight in gold since customers will be able to finally access all that the library has to offer. Up next, we have Rachel discussing the teen room.
Thanks, Shannon. So all of our different improvements that we've discussed so far have been taking an aspect of the library and changing it up in a way that will better serve the library staff and patrons, as well as increase circulation. But there's one crucial part of a library that any town library doesn't even have yet, a teen room. Currently, the teens are disturbing other patrons, which could make these patrons want to leave and not come back, damaging the library's circulation numbers. The teens themselves may also feel overlooked and not want to be there, which leads to the same issue. Next slide, please. We suggest that Mr. Megabucks spend $50,000 to create a teen space out of what used to be the library's children's programming room. Visits to this library show that this room is no longer used for its original purpose, as story time and other children's programs are done in the children's area. The room in question is close to the children's room, where teens would have a desk with a staff member stationed, but it is a walled-off area and it is its own separate space. So staff would be unobtrusive but visible to assist teens. The children's area is a big multi-purpose space, so teens should also get a good space that works for them. The new space would consist of gaming systems, computers, flexible seating, and, of course, soundproofing. Next slide, please. According to the Young Adult Library Services Association, or YALSA, the design of a teen space should accommodate a variety of activities and be flexibly arranged so these activities can take place easily. Furnitures, fixtures, and technology should be multifunctional and flexible so that as needs and activities change, the area can be adapted accordingly. This is why I specifically recommend the new flexible seating, so there will be chairs for lounging and tables for studying, and everything will be movable for programming. For gaming systems, I suggest having multiple systems, such as a Wii U, Xbox 360, and Nintendo Switch. These consoles would cost a few $100s altogether, and teens would be able to use them to play the video games that the library already has available to loan out. For the specifics for the teen room design, we would recommend including the local community and talking to the teen advisory board and getting their input. This would get the teens themselves involved in the creation of their new space, which would make it feel like theirs and want to be there, also increasing circulation at the library. Next slide, please. And that really is our goal. We want to make this library more welcoming and user-friendly, a place where the community wants to be. Libraries are, above all else, meant to be utilized by the community. All of these different areas seem a little rough right now, but with some improvements, the Anytown Library could be a booming center for the community. Mr. Megabucks, thank you for listening to our considerations, and we are welcome any questions that you may have in the continuation of this process. Thank you.